300 videos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, and then the
Doing the workflows where they're just like letting it haphazardly run on ultra code.
yeah, this is so funny. Like,
The funniest one is always like Claude 4.8 so good it successfully one-shotted my usage on it. Because like people were spinning up little things like a YouTube guy that Chris wrote or whatever.
Yeah.
He was doing like his content like thing where they do like research, write the script, do it, and it spun up like 55 agents simultaneously in like part of this 5-hour window of one prompt.
yeah. Morning.
So I read, like I was just sitting recording like made up on Thursday night and read
Yeah.
up. And it all worked. It was really cool, except that the main thing that would have made it useful for people was that the Kai AI, which was generating images, because the idea was to generate a bunch of images.
Yeah.
It was in a sub-agent and the environment went through to it, so it didn't have an environment variable in which to call Kai AI, and on debugging it said what I really needed to do was read from a .environment variable file, not pass it into the sub-agent because it wasn't going through.
So are we talking about the new workflow thing?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole mechanics around it are mysterious and undocumented, and
No, they're fairly documented now. The docs are there because it looked at all my reverse engineered docs and said, hang on, if you do a release notes,
yeah.
it's all available now, and it'll.
But even like, but the like the caching mechanism and
I'm sure there's lower level stuff, but there's now 8 different primitives related to it, and they are documented.
yeah, there's pipeline, parallel, workflow, agent, schema,
Pipeline
log,
parallel, there's cache,
log
so-
back phase. The cache is the underlying system, and so this is 3 different workflows that I made, like custom ones, right? So there's a higher level workflow which is just a classifier,
Yeah.
and then it will so that's got call some haiku agent who returns back structured output, right?
Yeah.
And if it turns out that it's a classifier for a mock, like, hey, you need to do this thing, it will go into this branch. And one of the things that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out was that, suppose you get to a step where you want to do a human in the loop process.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have agent A, agent B, agent C, it does a dev work, and then I don't like the work, and I'm like, send it back. You would want this to be cached, and this to be cached, and these 2 to be reprocessed, and not to spend tokens on them again.
Yeah.
So that whole mechanism is like, I spent like 2 days like trying to like fuck with it, because like it's not clear, and they're like, you can easily, so it's the cache mechanism is based almost entirely on, so from Claude he has a tool called workflow, and it's 2 arguments. So the workflow path and then args, which is like just passing anything.
Can I have a stupid question? So basically your point is that there's like 3 steps, 2 of them was okay and the last one was wrong?
It will only recompute the 3rd one.
Yeah, so why
But
you don't-
only if you pass in the exact values.
Yeah, but why
or-
you don't ask the previous agents to dump the results in the file and then just give from the file the spec or
Return, add the results to a file.
something? Yes, each agent dump the file,
Well,
next agent takes the
Because
file.
the writing to a file in this system is got a 20-second latency because there's this thing called remember. It's just really slow, but the technique I used to deal with that was to use a Blackbeard MCP. So if you create a Blackbeard MCP, you can
Do you attach it to the agent? Can you attach MCPs to the agents in there?
Yeah. Well,
What?
I did this last week before all the documentation because I was going, why the fuck was this taking 300 seconds to do 5 steps? And so every time you wanted to save data into like a state,
Yeah.
which is what you're trying to do, you're trying to save state, it's taking 25 seconds. I'm going, can we improve that with MCP? just offload.
An MCP that was like global to the project is available to the agent?
I did it both ways. I did it as a .mcp the project, but my initial one was just a global MCP.
Oh, interesting. So these are the mechanics I'm talking about, because one way to answer your question is that when you set up a workflow, when you run one, there's a journal, which is in your user space Claude. State is saved in here, and you can actually like literally you can't reaccess it, but you can indirectly access that state, which is part of the whole cache mechanism. So it's like if you're going to recompute a cycle that has state that you would want to reuse, you can, but you have to code it like correctly or else it doesn't work. It's like, it's super finicky. I intend to do a whole presentation. So next week when we do the Claude event here, that's the thing I want to do a presentation on, is how the fuck does the cache, how does the workflow mechanism work and how does the caching work? Because it's, man, I'm not joking. I spent 2 days like making all sorts of like random workflows to test it out. Like, oh, what if you did this or what if you did that?
So this required a fine tune to the model? Is that why there's a new model?
No,
Can you use
he
it
was
with an
using
old
it last week, and I used it like just a few times last week. This was with 4.7.
Right, because you guys had preview access, or did I miss it?
We turned, just turned on that. It was an experimental feature. Now it's first class feature with 4.8. So now every time you type in workflow anywhere, it becomes rainbow colour. So, and that's also the like I'm having this conversation talking about workflows, and it said underlying the model was trying to create models for you, but I knew you only wanted it to be documentation.
That's the crazy cool thing about it. Like,
Yeah.
if you like, and this is what Ian was talking about, that if you set on like ultra code mode, and you're seeing this now in the wild, and Claude is like, hey, I'll make a workflow for that. He'll just make workflows on his own to solve the problem that you have, and so now you have like this concept of like dynamic workflows getting created for some vague task you give it, right? And then you can maybe re-execute or tweak it. Obviously, the first time it's probably gonna be fucked up. But what's funny is that what's happening is that like Claude is inventing these workflows on his own that are 100 sub-agents or some shit, and people are burning an entire token window in their first run. So the reception of workflows online is like, I don't think people are liking it. And I think
So there's like in Ultra Code, it also turns off all the token minimums and all that stuff. So it basically gives full access to everything.
I should show it on
That's
screen
the
what it
big-
looks like,
that's
because
the big
it's got this cute.
So this came out as an experimental feature when?
A week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Just before last Saturday, because I was using it last Saturday.
They didn't announce it at all. They you just find it on accident.
Did you guys discuss it last Saturday?
I brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I guess I should
it got into the meeting. I sent a little thing on the chat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He did put it in the WhatsApp, but it was like a little footnote, and it made sense because I told you this. I was like, historically these guys can like pull something,
Yeah.
and so maybe they don't go through with it.
This is basically non-retarded graph loops. This is what I've been ringing about the whole time.
It's what?
Yeah, it is.
Non-retarded graph loops.
In a way,
No,
it is.
so I don't think it's that at all, because a route loop is just a loop. This is first class
Deterministic.
deterministic workflows, fan outs,
But you think that
additional
that's
logic.
anyway.
Yeah, that's
So
what
that means nothing that is.
They say you want to have something like control over the loop, whatever happens is that,
outside.
rather than do it for it's
So look, there's that. What Ian's talking about, ultra code. This is pretty.
This is how
Slot machine.
1980s.
That's just a warning. You're gonna burn all your tokens right now.
Well, it's like if you're using XHigh, like I use XHigh all the time, right? What we don't know is like, does that change the system prompt and encourage Claude to do who knows what with workflows? Like if it's encouraging them to generate more, or to just simply run them. I'm not sure.
It wouldn't change the system.
They've been experimenting with this. So when you do like /focus mode, that changes the system prompt, right? And if you turn it off, it changes the system. It alters it. Sorry.
Is that why they put in that new change the system prompt message mid-conversation. That was
Yeah,
a
that was-
feature
that
came
was a
out
big
4 or
thing,
5
yeah.
days
Yeah,
ago.
there's a new thing. What is it?
Change the system from
You change the system prompt mid-conversation without losing the caching issue. So, yeah, it continues to cache with a new system prompt change or something like that.
But so they can change the effort mid-prompt without setting,
Ah,
right?
yeah, that can be.
Yeah, I saw someone, but just someone was curious, like, how are they doing that? And
Well, only with the new Opus. It doesn't apply to any other model.
no, so I remember now. There's a guy, one of the guys who reversed so in Claude Code, the leak occurred, and some dude like went in and just started studying the code base. He found out that what the engineers are doing is that they are, so inside the GPUs where the cache is stored, they're modifying, they're like literally going into the cache in there, ripping out, like maybe you have like a section of memory, you
can't,
rip it out.
You have to recalculate every character after that.
They are doing it. Like this is part of how they are achieving this new.
But those are output tokens.
Those are Apple what?
Output tokens. Everything that gets recalculated after what you change is an output token. It's not cached.
So in your, let's say you have this big ass cache storage system, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, this line right here, if I were to change it, it would invalidate the entire cache
It's
on the
like-
client side.
It's like changing a character in a file that you've hashed. The hash is always going to be different. Even if it's only one character, you've got to rehash the whole thing.
Okay, but what if the file was like rows of hashes, not just one hash itself, but rows of hashes, and you simply, on one of those rows, you plucked out that hash, put a new one in, and you said, this is the cache. It's a match. If
Right,
you,
rather than a projection, it's an event source, so you can just recalculate from where you want to change it, not the whole thing.
Yeah, from where you want to change it onwards,
Yeah.
which is how it works now.
Well, you say it's how it works now. That capability is 3 or 4 days old.
No, you can have multiple caching points and you can choose to revert to any of them. That's how the escape thing works too. Double escape. Double escape is
Yeah, but
cached.
that's different to proclamation. That's just your going back to your conversation.
Yeah, but if you change anything back there, you have to recalculate forward. I think what they're
Doesn't
doing is
it
they're just...
force? What do you mean you have to recalculate it forward?
No, I
Yeah.
remember I was typing workflow accident in my problem yesterday, and it had highlighted that like entity.
yeah,
I said,
rainbow colored
what the hell is this
animation.
doing? And I had a space in between. I didn't want to trigger whatever that was supposed to trigger. That was it about. Yeah, no, I understand. I noticed the accident yesterday.
I think what they're saying is it keeps the old system right, but it can override it with the system tags at this, like at the bottom, you know? So it's essentially like prompt injection.
No, I don't. I think what's actually happening is that when you calculate the system prompt as its own, let's just say you calculate it as a hash, for example, just to understand. So if you were to swap the system prompt in the cache storage with another system prompt, you would simply need to compute the new system prompt, remove the one that's there, put the other one in. So every new request that comes in, if it matches and it's a cache hit, then you benefit. And you can just constantly swap the system prompt nonstop and have no issue ever. The only, so how would you do this? You would need to like literally dive into, so this is like the crazy thing that the guy was saying, like you can only do this if you can go, they've gone down into the actual GPUs and they're hot swapping the cache live, which is like, no one has ever done that before.
Can we read what this guy's saying?
There is also a
I
paper where
have to
they're
find it.
testing this to send in agents inside to the boot before it starts to build KV cache. It starts to inject and recalculate almost in real time. So there is a lot of this stuff that's being researched and figured out. As far as the fucking technical, jargon, it's a little bit over my head, but it's pretty cool stuff that they're doing.
If this is possible, it changes everything because
Yeah.
we can now, we don't have to worry about context anymore. You know, the main reason we're running out of context is because we're respecting caching.
I I think they're doing fun, cool things with this, with where you're getting at. Like you can branch it, you can make copies of it.
Yeah, I want to know what this guy is talking about. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, I gotta find
I'll find
the.
an article too if you're wrong.
It was incredibly interesting. The guy who did the write up and basically reverse engineered the whole Claude Code thing. It's already 10:10.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, given the fundamental problem of tokens being very expensive, so I wouldn't be surprised they release these new models very often these days. There seems to be 4.6, 7, 8, 9 coming out all the time. So it's not just only retraining the model or something, but it has something like that, like it's actually changing the technique behind the casing and things like that happening there. So
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it could be. I actually would love to hear more information on if that's happening or not. Like, what is going on here with the whole? You got 4.6, then 4.7, now we're at 4.8, and it's like really. Anthropic is faster than anyone else right now at this whole release cadence.
yeah.
Isn't it just the natural, we've just been gradually speeding up every quarter? And the others seem to be, I see the others going faster at different times. So I think it's just every quarter we just see a compression of this and we feel like it's faster. It's just the natural.
The measurement would be what is the number of weeks between the launches, right? And so we're already a couple months, this many months into the year, and we've already had 3 model releases, I think.
Don't you have to also consider what the change was?
Yeah,
And
the knowledge change is not so much anymore. It's the same.
That's
It's
exactly
like
what
2 factors
It's not.
for us. It's like,
So let's talk about it. So you're saying it's incremental,
yeah.
right? It's an incremental thing, and therefore it's not. Okay, but there are like a lot of people who love Opus 4.6 and they absolutely hate 4.7, which I understand if you're harping on the wall of text stuff. So capability difference is there, and I think how do you extract capability difference is also like this. It's not so simple, because while 4.7 is really annoying in how it creates these incredible walls of text that are incredibly information dense, that language is incredibly useful as context for both documents, for in context in the conversation. It actually, that rich context actually ends up being really, really good. Like you actually want that.
Now you got 4.8 creating something that I'm finding a bit painful is overuse of the ask button.
An overuse?
Yes, every time I type anything, it goes into Q&A mode. I liked conversation mode, but almost everything is now Q&A mode with the ask tool as soon as we name.
That's true. Yeah. Funny that shows up, isn't it?
Well, they talk about it as being one of the things you're going to do, but the unintended consequence is that if you used to just have a
I
conversation.
think this is maybe because the most people are not specific in prompts. So
Yes.
for normies it's good.
I know
as
why it
questions,
is. It doesn't mean
but,
I like
but
it.
for us it's like
It's on lateness based.
It's there for most people, but I find it constricting.
yeah.
I like it. I think it's great.
I think it's better than 4.7. 4.7 produced so much information that I kept making mistakes because I just didn't have capacity to digest all that information. So I've sort of noticed the same thing. It is prompting questions more often. I'm not yet sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's better than 4.7.
Yeah, but
There's
it's a happy middle ground. Is that if you have an orchestrator and it does the thinking for you, so if it does the thinking for you, all that context, like you just said, is really useful for the model. But if the final thing you get is, here are 3 options that you could go down, but I think you should go for number 2, and this is the reason why I think it should happen. And would you like me to go? You look at it and you type go,
Yeah.
which is much easier. That you've still got all the Q&A that you had in the ask tool. You
Yeah.
have all the context you had in 4.7, but you have a really nice angel sitting next to you saying, this is what I think you should do and this is why I think you should do it.
I think it's good. I think it's better than not having it. So
Yeah, the problem is you've got to go and create that orchestrator and know how to do it, yes.
Yeah, I mean, having those questions, you have to think about 4 questions every single time. Like that gets equally exhausting. You need to be able to give like high confidence option of this one, which is really the recommended. Like this is the only one you really have to look at, and then go with that.
And also, none of those questions actually have context to them. They're just questions. So I'm going,
It's getting
I didn't read the rest of it. How am I going to answer the
Yeah,
question?
it's a good point.
But that's more of like an issue of how do you present this to me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if you can solve that, then well, like what benefit do you get from this? You get velocity. You get velocity and clarity. It's like I don't need to read paragraphs of anything. All I need to see is like whatever is in this little box.
Yeah, but you're taking the human.
But you don't know what exactly means.
Huh?
So when you don't know exactly context, just answer for like 2 sentences, then you have imagination, what does it mean? But the model has different imagination. And then after the loop, you see the result, and it's like, okay, so
That's an alignment thing, right? Like, are you aligned with what the model thinks is? I think that's like a skill thing, right? Like you can sniff out that, hey, there's ambiguity here. I feel like that's like the human job to detect ambiguity. Like there's ambiguity, and I know the model can.
yeah, but
From this point on-
nowadays model like more and more system prompt to provide safety results. Maybe coding is not a big difference, but then you have the spec, tell exactly what you need to do, and then if the spec is not valid in the system prompt guidance and so on, then you will get completely different results, even if the questions will be okay, I will do what you want.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about that yet. Maybe there's an RL issue here too. Because like, once you're outside the bounds of RL, the model's like dumb as fuck, right? So maybe there's an RL issue there. We've already started basically, so hello, welcome, thank you all, blah, 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 all that good stuff. We're talking about Opus 4.8, right? That's the conversation right now. So who has used it, who hasn't used it? Who's used it, what's your take? That's kind of what we're sharing about right now. I'm using it, I'm loving it, I'm preferring it over 4.7. I absolutely fucking hated 4.7's impossible to read text. I know people trying to get around this by make me an HTML document or something just so they can get out of like reading 4.7's text. 4.8, I love the way that it reads. It doesn't like give me a headache. I can go working until 2 a.m. and not feel drained. I've spoken, actually Juha, you've brought this up where the problem with 4.7 that you've had is like by the middle of the day your brain is just fried because of trying to interpret what the hell this thing is talking about. I don't have that issue, and I had that issue, but with 4.8 I don't anymore.
Yeah.
So here is a question like 4.7, we had this issue from the beginning, or
Yes.
it started after some weeks? Because my experience for 7 the beginning was very good, and then after some time it was like almost useless.
Share what's going. Yeah. So what's happening here? Why are these experiences showing up, man? For me, 4.6 was great. 4.7 was super stressful. Super stressful. Like every time this thing would respond, I would get, oh shit, what the fuck is this thing say? And
I think it's also that the Opus is quite slow. Like now I switched to Composer, which is much faster. Then even if you get a bullshit, but you get much faster, and to get iterate faster, your mental state is much better.
okay, yeah, fair enough. That's a 2.5 composer, right?
Yes.
I just started typing Elay 5 enter. That seems to work.
That helps you with the whole
Yeah,
veracity of bringing it down and making it easy.
Yeah.
Is anyone else having this problem, and how are you getting around it? Did you just jump to some other model, or who's using Anthropic's Claude Opus stuff? Raise your hand, just so we can see in the room who's. Okay. Have any of you guys moved over to 4.8? Liking it? Not liking it? No opinion yet. It's too early. It's only a couple days.
Seems like just the first sessions where we are headed, where it was saying echo 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3, okay, alive or something like this. A few steps, but I just saw it yesterday.
Interesting.
That seems to very often happen when they release a new model. The first day, first 24 hours, there's all sorts of weird glitches, but they usually go away very quickly.
Yeah.
Has anyone tried, so my understanding is that if you're setting, there's a difference now between, like if you're on medium effort and if you're, so medium effort, the model just acts differently compared to high and beyond. So there's actually this, I don't remember the exact patch note, but there was something about choosing between medium or less and high or higher is sort of like this, it's a distinctive thing that you're gonna do because you're trying to get something out of the model in this very specific way. Has anyone played with medium effort? No? Okay, that's fine. Something worth trying. I certainly need to experiment with it.
What do you think? Like, at least previously on medium, results weren't great. It was a lot of, was garbage. It was way too many assumptions.
Yeah.
Like, linking it to 4.8, like I had a big problem with 4.7 where it just made assumptions and wrong ones, bad ones. And so you could provide as many details if you wanted, even if there was like some area that was not clear, just made assumptions and didn't ask enough questions, even though through every Claude MD I could find, I always stressed like push back, ask questions, but often it didn't. And with 4.8 that got a lot better.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So that sounds like a few different things. One, it sounds like it's following your instructions more, and the other one is that it's not as
I haven't removed it yet, that it should push back and ask more questions, so maybe I should remove it from the Claude MDs and see if it helps or not.
Right, right.
If anything, yeah.
Interesting. Anyone have any 4.8 experiences to share? If you have some, shout it out. If you have none, that's okay.
There was a funny thing when I was running my own code review stuff, and then it launched like 5 sub-agents to run to review my code, and then at the end of the message you had like in parentheses, and by the way, when you really want to do this properly, we've got this code review cloud thing when you can run the whole thing. So it's really selling me, you know, it's a proper sales pitch. He was forwarded like he was a sales pitch. So this is I'm gonna run that. However, if you really want to do this properly, here's our. And he was literally just giving me the prompts and examples how to run it.
I saw that you put it on WhatsApp, right?
Yeah.
So Opus is trying to sell you to buy Anthropic credits basically and spend more money.
All he was saying, like, for you, this is $9.99 for the first one. That was the only thing he was saying.
This is essentially an ad. Like,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
that's funny.
I was just thinking that they said they roasted OpenAI for making ads, and then they made this.
Yeah, now it's suggesting to use its own paid cloud tools.
Same, but different.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's a good thing because it's the new model is obviously aware of its own features right now, so it's like more up to date.
The controversy would be if that is in the system prompt. Then, you know, like, hey, advise the user or suggest to them to use one of our cloud products. That would be controversial versus like it's baked into the model training because it's just a weird thing that shows up.
It didn't propose like Codex version of that OpenAI, and it specifically picked its own.
Curious, very curious. So okay, so 4.8 came out. So if you don't know, Opus 4.8 came out, and with it came this thing called workflows. Let me see which version of the video I got. And workflows, so this is like a post from Kat, PM from the Claude Code team. And this is like an example of a workflow. So if you remember a week back, there was the Bun system, the Bun runtime got rewritten in Rust, caused a lot of controversy, a lot of, I don't know, hate and love all at the same time. And the mechanism that they used to port the Bun system from Zig to Rust, they used workflows. So that tool that they used to migrate is what came out with Opus 4.8. So one way to look at, and the way that they sort of headlined this on their website is like, hey, if you're in some legacy system that's got old code and you want to migrate it to some newer system, this is sort of the holy grail that people have been looking for, right? I've got this old Java system or .NET system, how do I migrate it to a new one? They're coming out saying, you could do that with this workflow capability, because we just did it with Rust. We took this humongous code base that was in some other language and moved it to another language. So if we can do it, you can do it. I think that's kind of the message that they're giving out. And I think it's sort of like they're saying, you can do it with 4.8 and you can do it with this workflow thing. And then what they're not saying is that it's going to cost you a shitload of money. So that's part of the controversy that's happening right now, is that there are people who are using this workflow tool, and within their first run, they're just burning their entire session window, their usage session, because it's incredibly costly.
Nick,
Yeah.
do you have any idea how they're doing this report, and like what kind of steps are in their workflow, or why workflow is helpful at all?
I know only a little bit because the branch that actually did the conversion of Bun is on GitHub, and I took a look at it. And I think there's like, I sent you the link, there's like 30 workflows in there. I have no fucking clue how they're running that thing. They didn't release that detail. I suppose Jared supposedly says he's going to write a blog on explaining it. So I'm not too, my understanding, like I read some of those workflows that they had in that Bun branch, and it was meant to run as like, run workflow A, and then I think the operator has to type in like, okay, now run B, now run C. I think it was like that. But I'm not too sure. All I know is that the code is available for you to see.
I'm wondering how it differs from a prompt, which is of course what's different. But
So it's
Okay.
very, very different.
yeah,
It's a TypeScript flow, phases, and what those phases represent in our terminal is these square boxes. You can see the workflow, and you can say, okay, it's going to run 5 agents within that particular phase. And it'll say 1 of 5, 2 of 5, and you'll see it there. And you can click into them, and you'll see the actual content session, just like we can see a background.
I don't have
agent.
any prepared
Context
that is
is-
fast.
and it just follows the structure of the TypeScript workflow, and you can put logic in
Oh, I
there,
do.
there's TypeScript, stuff like that. The only problem with it, the challenge with it that we were talking about earlier, is that it is in a sandbox, so you can't just reach out to your file system to get something really easily. It's meant to either come through the arguments, or you can get access to it through MCPs.
So I'm wondering, when they say they released a workflow, what does that actually mean? Does it mean like a workflow customized for a port?
Yes.
Or is
So,
it a
no,
framework?
it's designed to run in here. So I'm running one on the other computer at the moment. It's just processed 25 agents. So I'm
I can do that.
From the AITLDR YouTube channel, I have 300 video, not transcripts, the titles, the thumbnails, all that. So I can rebuild a website. So the website's meant to be based around 350 YouTube videos. I was going, do I write a script to go and get that? Instead I've written a workflow, and it's in the middle of doing it right now. And it's tested with 25 of them. And it's really cool, because when you run the agent to go get data, there's also these first-class primitives in the schema. What the schema does is you say, I want the data to be in this shape, and it retries until it happens. So that's also really cool. So if we're using prompts to say, can you give me a list of airline flights, and it must have 2 from pricing, and it doesn't come back correctly, the schema will enforce it and it will retry.
How would you be confident it's actually, if it's done a port of one thing to another, that it's functionally completed and duplicated, and then
I'll try.
Restate that question again.
How would you know if it's ported from one system or language to another that it's functionally the same?
So, notice that they converted the Bun JavaScript to Rust, right? And they used all workflows. So part of the workflow is the creation of the workflow. So part of them are requirements workflows, but most of the workflows in there would have been validation workflows going, does this actually the moment, I'm working on a brain system with Ian, and the problem I've got is I've rewritten core, and I know that the code looks the same, but if I actually run it over 1,000 files, is it the same? And so I've got a whole lot of workflows whose only job is to go, is the data the same? So that's how you just got to, it's just more engineering that you've got to do on the validation side than on the creation side.
I can show a little bit of the workflows up here. So if you guys look up here, there is so I'm inside Claude Code, right? If I type /workflows like that, and I hit enter, it pulls up this UI. The UI will show a previously ran workflow. So you can see in this case, I just created like this hello world, very sample basic workflow, which is using 2 agents. So if I dive in, actually let me break this down a little bit. You have what's called phases. This is like a normal thing when you're doing graphs, right? You create phases on a graph. That's just a normal graph concept. Within a phase, you can have your agents and your control system within them. So in this case, there's 2 agents within this one phase called greet. So agent 1, you can see the prompt right here. Your agent 1 in the hello world demo, return a short, cheerful one line. You can see the outcome of what the agent, right here, this last thing, right? And then if I come back, I can see the second agent's outcome. Okay, so what does all this mean? What's going on here? So let me take a step back. In order to explain this, let me first rerun this thing so you can see what's going on. So if I'm here in Claude and I say, please rerun or run that. Firstly, notice that workflow is now animated. So this is how you know. Yeah, this is how you know that you're going down the right direction.
What if we have other things that we've been calling workflows forever?
Yeah.
You're gonna have.
I ran into that yesterday. That workflow.
I don't want to.
Okay.
Vercel has workflow. Vercel, the Vercel plugin has a workflow plugin or workflow twin. That actually Vercel actually.
Yeah, so collide basically is the answer.
It's very convenient.
But the 4.8 also can sometimes work out context, because that happened today for me, where I was both discussing how to do workflows and creating them, and it said the tool wanted to create one, but I know you're discussing it, so it was fairly smart as well.
Speaking of ready names, the Cursor CLI executable name is agent.
Oh really?
That's the name, agent.
That's another thing. So like, and I don't know if we'll get to it, but like later on, you might get to just like Grok build came out, and then if you install Grok build, it automatically takes over the agent command. So the way you launch Grok build is with the word agent. So it's kind of.
Time for an alias.
Well, the problem is it collides with Claude, because if you run the agent system, and you have to type Claude agent, and it'll actually trigger it. It's like a weird collision.
Interesting. All sorts of weird things happening. Okay, let me bring us back. So here, Claude ran a workflow. If I show the log, you'll see right here, dynamic workflow completed. And if I pull up the workflow UI again, we'll now see that in this session, 2 workflows ran. The first one, which is the one I ran before when I started sharing this, and then when I asked it to run it again.
Can you ask it to print out what the workflow was, so we can see that?
Like a visual?
Yeah.
We can hit S to save too.
JSON.
We could try. It's not inherently part of the tool, but we'll try and see if it can get it right. So I'll use the visualize tool that I have built in. We'll see if we can get it. I'm not sure.
So
Reach
basically,
out and use it.
deterministic script that is calling different agents and passing the state into, right?
The way it works is, yeah, so you have, you create your graph of agents, and there's a single entry point, which is entry point to the workflow, and Claude will pass in the signature. It's a function, so yeah, it will pass in the data. You have no control over this. Like Claude has complete control over that whole thing. So you have to convince him to type, tell him like what to enter and all that. There's a lot of nuance to it. Like like I said, I want to do a presentation on this next week to sort of break it down because there's so much mechanics on how it works.
You can store them and then you can manually edit, right?
Work.
Okay, good question. You can store them. Yes, you. Okay, this right here, this is an actual file of what a workflow looks like. Let me take a step back. So, in your .claude folder, you can have a. Come here. Let's look at this. So this is what your typical .claude folder looks like. Hook, skills, and now you can have a new folder called workflows. So let me open one. This is the workflows that was used to do the bun port to Rust. Notice how many are in here. There's a lot. Also note they did this 2 weeks ago. You can see that there's a lot of workflows they use in order to transition to port their code base. So if I open one of these workflows, just so you can see what it looks like, let me open.
And then nesting them.
Yeah, you can nest them. You can have them call each other. And so if you open one, this is what it would look like. So it's JavaScript. You must have this export meta at the top. This is what Claude can see in his context window. He can see the description. And then the phases, I think, is part of some underlying type check system. I'm not sure. I haven't figured that out. And if you look at this file, you'll see that it starts off with, at the very top, we're going to see like these schemas. So like this is a survey schema, a port schema, schemas. What are the schemas for? The schemas are that when you get to, let's find it. Yeah, this is why I need to do a presentation because like reading all this is like just not super easy. You'll see that they have a pipeline call in here. So when you build these workflows, you can only use, I think it's like a handful of primitives. Pipeline, parallel, agent, phase, log, and something else, and workflow.
I think someone should make like user interface and annotate for that.
It's going to be needed. Yeah, it's hard to like look at the code and explain it. But anyways, this is what it looks like. So next week I can break it down more and show why you would build this in some way or how you would build them too, because I've already built a few of mine.
So this is what I mean when I say non-retarded route loop. It's going through each file in a different context.
It's going through each file.
Read f.file. Read each path. Like it's passing in each file programmatically.
Yeah, so this right here is the prompt for the agent to execute. You notice this agent function in here? This is saying that when this workflow runs, spawn an agent who has this as a prompt and interpolate these strings.
So you have 80 lines of schema parameters, let's call them class or something, and only then you send out the actual prompt.
No,
As you were scrolling, there was like 15 mentions of replace to, replace to, replace to.
Where?
So you basically pass on the entire schema when you want, then you send a text prompt, you use like 4 or 5 primitives, and that becomes a runnable workflow.
The schema is, so the purpose of the schema is that, let's find it. When you create an agent inside the workflow, you must provide this object as the last parameter to the agent function. And in it, you can provide optionally a schema. So what this is doing is that, so historically in Claude Code, what you could never do ever in Claude Code is you could never do structured output. You were never able to say like, let me take a step back here. to explain this. In the Claude API or an OpenAI's API, in any of the big model providers, when you're calling their cloud API, you have the ability to call structured output, which is saying like, forcibly, I want you, when you give me an answer, it must look like this. You can only do it from the API historically. You can never do it from inside Codex, you can never do it from inside Claude Code, and so on. The workflow features is now baking this in as a first class primitive. It's saying that agents that run within your workflow are you can force them to have a structured output on their response. And it's optional. You can choose to do it or you can choose not to do it. So this is like the first time ever that within Claude Code you can say, always give me output that looks like X or Y. That is the purpose of the schema here. It's to give you that structured output capability.
Is it JSON?
It comes out as JSON, yeah, correct.
How well does this know if you've got multiple workflows and agents working in parallel or not, to not causing race condition or merge conflicts or that kind of a thing? How well does it know I'm porting code across? I have to make sure these agents don't try and write the same thing and screw it up.
I think it's a good question, and I think this is like, Claude is not going to be smart enough to figure this out. It's up to you as the engineer to engineer the workflow to be correct. And you have to know these primitives that you have available to you. So for example, in the case of what you're sort of alluding to, which is, say I want to port this massive code base and I need like 100 or 1,000 agents to do it. Part of the workflow feature here is that you have this thing called parallel. It's a primitive. And you can basically say like spawn as many, you can establish a number of agents and you can say run them all in parallel. And there's also a capability to say, don't do it in parallel, do it sequentially, right?
Can you flag which workflows can run concurrently and which ones can't? Can
Yeah,
say
you
which
as the engineer can determine this in the code file.
You have parallel and pipeline as primary primitives, plus you can pass in an array of files. So when you're running it, let's say you're doing linting as an example. You say you're doing it on this file, you're doing it on this file. Or if you're changing the signature or something, you're doing it on this file, you're doing it on this file. So you don't have to worry about merge conflict if you just make sure that every agent works on a single file.
Yeah.
This is what I was wondering as well. I don't think parallelism is a problem. Of course, like, it's a reality for a couple of months, just own 200 agents. All of them will go and do their own thing. But, for example, that porting Bun to Rust, it was clearly stated that there are like several phases. I was wondering if this can be used to actually predefine all of the workflows for Bun to Rust, and then running them all at the same time, where they parallelize, but at the same time the order basically goes sequentially. So the first workflow phase A step 1 is on the 22nd step.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, phase E is basically waiting for the 22nd step to finish because
Yeah.
that's the first file that it needs to touch.
Yeah.
So something like this, if that was built in, that would be amazing.
No, that is what's built in. Like that level of determinism and that level of control is what you have access to because it's using JavaScript. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff. So you have to imagine when they built this Bun rewrite, what they likely did is they established, my guess, you would make 3 workflows to start with and you'd run it and then you'd look at the output and you would say, did it convert the code base? No, let me go back and add more workflows or extend them or something. And eventually I'm sure they ended up on this monstrosity of 30 different workflows. That's what it took to do the port.
But there's another thing, because what you're talking about now is harness engineering. It's the idea of, do I as a programmer in building my harness make sure that I've got my dependency chain right? One of the things they've built is that you don't write workflows, which is harness engineering. You use the workflow tool to write them, and it knows how to do that. So it goes back to that old idea of that says, I would like you to do 20 things. I think some of them are parallelized. I think some of them are sequential. I think there's a fan out, fan in, but I'm not sure. Can you figure it out? And we could have done that in Opus 4.6, right?
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask. Hello World takes 40K tokens. Is that do you have a heavy reburn, or is it something that is a toll for the workflows?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You run Hello World's workflow.
Yeah.
You consume 80K tokens.
Yeah.
40K per each haiku. My
Yeah.
question is, if that is because of the workflow, or because you have a heavy MCP, skill, etc. hubris.
It's like that's the result of running the workflow, right? So however this workflow is created just happens to use 40,000 tokens.
Jesus
But I noticed that the second one responded as ghost, so both of the workflows probably did a bunch of read things to figure out context of how they should hello work.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Probably.
you bring up the TypeScript file or the JavaScript file for that workflow? Just so we can see how it's done.
Ready to work.
At the bottom is the
Hey Dave, do you define blockers so if the workflow can't figure out how to do the next thing that's blocked by another system or waiting for a dependency to be built, how do you deal with like that so they're not creating all kinds of
I don't have enough experience to tell you. I know you can put logic in there.
Yeah,
Like
I don't want to
make
fix
it
it on
so
Claude.
that it's most composable
yeah.
and
Then I'll sit here like trying to
Have ready
fucking
of it.
micro the thing.
It's like this one won't be able to do anything until this one says it's complete.
Exactly.
And then
So
blocker.
I can do that.
you would think of it exactly the way you do graphs in Comfy UI and you split them out into little workflows. That's how you do it here. I haven't tried to call a workflow from a workflow. I'm not sure. Nick, do you know if you can call a workflow from a workflow?
Yes, and I'm doing it. I have a workflow that's already set up in this way. What do we got here? So this is the workflow that Claude just made right now. The Hello World workflow. This is what it looks like. Looks very similar to the Bun one. You have your export meta at the top. There's a phase. That's one of the primitives of the workflow feature. There's the schema. And then now this is the actual workflow. So I have await, I have parallel. I'm saying whatever is inside this function, run it in parallel. And notice I have two calls here. An agent call right here. This is the prompt for it. And another agent call here. And that's the prompt for that. So if I were to look at this visually, this is what it would look like visually. If you're one of those N8N, if you're looking at things from an N8N perspective, this is what it would look like. You have your workflow start, a phase which is just a category, and we're saying spawn 2 agents. I know text is really hard to see. It does say agent 1 in there, haiku, agent 2. And when they're done, Claude loves this word barrier, which is basically the same thing as an aggregator. So if you're familiar with the agentic workflow patterns, you have fan out, fan in, and whatever. There's like all sorts of different ones. Aggregator is one of those. After you do a fan out, you have access to that here.
Where do we read about all the different patterns?
Go through history, and there's like one of the websites one of the blog posts from Anthropic from last year or 2 years ago, I don't remember, has some of them. They're just all over the
That
place.
was the one about long time coding, right?
There was one about they found that they were constantly implementing these patterns, and then they noticed that hey, every time we go to set up agentic systems, we just see ourselves commonly doing this, and those patterns are now the patterns.
Where you can find the patterns through engineering is go look at lane chain, look at the blogs around lane changes. They worked out the patterns quite a while ago. Doesn't mean they're all implemented here, but at least you know where they're going.
40,000 tokens to bring basically a greeting. That does seem really excessive. Like, when you ran this thing, it created 2 different greetings, total 80,000 tokens.
Yeah.
So something in the running a haiku.
It's for a simple example.
It's like what's how executes work.
Haven't they also plug and read and some of that, so it's going to depend on that.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how it actually executes that. Because when you look at something like LangGraph, it's pretty straightforward. Just one that does the code and something. So it would, if I was to make a custom LangGraph workflow like that, it would burn like 1,000 tokens. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have a system prompt, and you wouldn't have maybe MCPs or skills in there. Like, have we got any way of seeing when the skills or anything loaded into that?
Into like a workflow. It's not supported yet.
I mean, there's probably a lot more smarts in the actual execution of it. It does think in between like that. Whereas when you build a custom like that, you literally have like every single line of code under your control. You can see how it executes, and you can have that. There's something more. They're bringing the same all these graph execution concepts into the system. That is exactly how they run that. But just the way it does that right now behind the scenes seems to be quite heavy, and there's a lot of things going on that I cannot really see from that workflow documentation and the code. The JavaScript is pretty, it's like this much, and you got the primitives there and a prompt, and then a long run and something happening. So what else is going on there?
Yeah.
I have a question. When the agent method is called, is that starting a new agent, like a sub-agent, or is it the current agent?
It's a
Sub agent.
Okay, so is it possible that some of that 40K was just the overhead of starting an agent?
It would be equivalent to going into some directory and typing Claude, hitting enter. I think. I'm actually not sure. This is part of the. This is also part of, I guess, the discussion here is that the mechanics and documentation around this are not there.
Would it run an agent without anybody at all, or any work at all?
Yeah.
I wonder how many tokens it would use.
Yeah, that would so my only understanding of all this, by the way, is from empirical testing. I've like run all sorts of stuff to try to extract this info because you can't find like answer to these questions, I don't know, online. Like they don't have a documentation that explains it. So this one I haven't tested, so I don't know how or why or what's the setup, going on underneath the hood.
Nick, if you can see the source code for the workflow, does that mean you can hack it and maybe do other things that it works for? Or is Claude controlling it and going, no, you can't modify my workflow and build that as well?
You can definitely modify it. It sits on your file system.
Okay.
So it sits in the .claude folder. You can totally modify it and do whatever you want.
But it runs in a container, so you are limited on
Yeah.
what you can access.
Yeah, I like verifying that to make sure you didn't break it first for their system.
And that's the thing, at some
So
point,
you take a local
Break
to
down its programmatic
it's not-
access.
not on their system.
There's a lot of limitations, like you can't, from the actual, so in this file, you cannot like read the file system. It's actually not possible. You can't do API calls, not possible. You can only do them if it's in the prompt of an agent and you're telling the agent, please call some API.
Not quite sure.
how is it accessing the source code then to be able to refactor into another language if you can't read it from the file system?
No, the agent can read into the file system, but the workflow
Oh,
file
the
itself,
workflow code, yeah.
unless you've seen, my understanding is that
No,
this,
no, just one thing you said there. So APIs, I don't know, reading the file system, you can't write code to do that, but you can do an MCP. So your MCP
Right.
can do all the work for you,
Yeah.
and you just offload it to them and say, well, what is going on?
Yeah.
And that's how you can get a read-write mechanism for your agents.
there's heavy restrictions basically is the thing here. There's a lot of restrictions on what you can and can't do. And once again, they're not really documented. You have to like sort of figure it out.
Trial and error.
Yeah, it's,
So one of the things I'm building at the moment is called Watchtower, because we need to be able to watch these things. But more importantly, if we're going to lose access to the -p command, so you can't necessarily spin up, because you want to run a workflow, and the normal way would be, let's spin up 15th of June, that's going to disappear. You're going to have to pay for it. So I'm running this watchtower concept that says I will just have these 4 windows open, conversations open, and they've all got a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute loop repeat. So everything, I could run 4 agents at a time, or 4 workflows at a time with 1 minute intervals, and then I drop a trigger, like I want this one to run. Then a mutex kicks in because only one should ever be able, 2 should be able to run. So it takes that file, shifts it over. That workflow now owns it. And so that whole idea of being able to run workflows on autopilot without having the ability to actually run a Claude session, I'll do with just 1 minute loops. And I've got this watchtower application that I'm building just to show me what's going.
What have you got running in the agents then if it's not Claude?
No, I've got Claude running, but it's just, I just start up 4 terminals.
Yeah.
We're just saying /loop skill. And the skill is run the next workflow.
Yeah.
And so every minute, or maybe every 4 minutes, right, it says run the next one, and it grabs a lock, a mutex on that file, brings it in and says, okay, I'll run it. That's, I haven't used it yet. I wrote the spec for it this morning, and maybe later today.
And the change of the -p means that it's going to become very expensive to run that in the future. Is that what you said?
I asked that question, like how much is these /loops that do nothing going to be? They should be relatively cheap. But I think this token cost issue should be, there's an overhead, right? There's an overhead, 40K, blah, blah, blah. But the ability to just sit from a control center and run 20 jobs and go and watch Netflix is worth the token cost.
Have you looked at open code? Because a lot of what you can do in Claude Code, you can port across to open code, like running agents and /commands and stuff like that.
I haven't, only because I don't want to pay API costs. I want to be able to maybe have 2 or 3, max 200 subscriptions, and just let them run on autopilot. That's my goal. I'm not there. That's just my goal.
Okay, anything else on before, I think maybe we move on from workflows. Like I said, I will do a presentation on this next Saturday when we do the Claude event for developers here. I will present a better understanding of how these things work and the mechanics behind it. And I imagine they will do changes to it also in the week, so I'll put all that stuff in the presentation as well.
I'd love to hear if you can hack the workflow and make it do what you want to do.
Should be doable, yeah. It's meant to be authored by you. Or Claude, either one, but it's meant for you to mess with it.
Is it a binary or you have full source?
It's just a JavaScript file that goes in the .cloud folder.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, it's deceptively simple, yeah. But it's unbelievably powerful. I think it's designed kind of correctly. Like they put the limits on, like they're not gonna let you do all these crazy things that they don't want you to do. But then the things that you do need to do, they allow for it. But yeah, it's just a JavaScript file. Okay.
So what's to stop you from putting your own JavaScript file that does all the stuff you used to use the API?
What's to stop you from using your own
Like
JavaScript
they
file?
don't want programmatic access to be free, right?
That's
Okay.
not what they're
This is
saying.
programmatic
That
access.
statement's not true. They just want it to run within the harness. So one of the things with these TypeScript files which makes it look simple, so there's no importing of packages. So everything that you can do, parallel, agent, pipeline schema, all that is already in Claude Code. It's already in the harness. Can I go and install my own libraries? Probably. Maybe.
Into the workflow file, you cannot.
Okay,
No.
so
You cannot bring in like node packages or something into it.
Yeah. So you can write your own code. So you can inject your own code there.
say I'm
you can
doing web
MC.
scraping and they want me to pay for web scraping, I can make a workflow that has in the prompt for the agent go and fetch these URLs, and then another workflow that processes them, and now I can do web scraping without paying API costs.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, but in the end, now this is
after 3 months you will need to pay with API to do this.
This is a question. It doesn't make sense. Maybe
Don't have answers to this. We don't know. Like the when they spoke about the change in how the pricing will work with what you're talking about, that was for anything that is not the CLI would have pricing enforcement. So Claude-P, Claude subprocess, Agent SDK running locally in your system, all that goes out the window. You cannot use your subscription anymore. The guess here is that anything within the Claude Code CLI, like the interactive session that's open, would apply to the subscription. That's the guess, and that's the hope. But you're right. Like if workflows gets applied to the API cost, like they charge you for it, then I don't know. This thing becomes
I
dead.
think it's a very important question, like economics of the each provider. Because if you like use only one provider and build your entire flow with their SDKs, their flow, then if they change the pricing policy, then you are fine. And
Yeah.
for me, like cloud subscription or OpenAI is very good. But when you see at the real prices, that if you want to make a product based on that is API, doesn't make any sense.
It's really expensive.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you need to use API by yourself, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I would be like afraid to go too much deep in each ecosystem, because then if the policy passing switch, then
Yeah,
it's
vendor
not
lock-in,
really-
you're
yeah.
screwed. And and that was another thing that came. We can talk about it. I don't think I have it on the slide here, but we can talk about it anyways. One of the things that came up this week, we brought it up last week, and it's showing up again, which is companies that have their AI budget allocation already burnt out. They've already maxed out their AI budget, and they're not sure how to proceed. I think this week one of the drama was about within some of the very big companies like Amazon, they have this token leaderboard. One of the rumors that came out this week was someone from Anthropic was saying like, hey, we posed this concept of doing a token leaderboard inside Anthropic, and it became like this very heated argument within the company, and the decision was to not do it. And so what's the relevance here? Well, Amazon chose to do a token leaderboard internally in their company, and now they've had all those issues with people just pushing random shit and not checking it. They're basically doing token maxing, and it's just destroying the business because one, it's making their products worse, and two, their AI budget has been exceeded. They've exceeded what the allocation they have. That's become a very big problem.
It seems to me that they're aggressive, they're desperately trying to get people locked in. And their aggressive pricing is going to drive people away, so they got to do all these other things to lock them in. A lot of people now, I think, are going to go to DeepSeek and the like, and just pay for the very cheap tokens rather than stay in Claude. I mean, some people will stay, of course, the ones that care less about the money.
I think what's happening is this, what we see in AI is this, this whiplash effect, where you're gonna make this prediction, you see some capability and you're like, I'm gonna build a strategy around it, and then unexpected things show up that you couldn't plan for. I think that's what's happening right now. There's all this unexpected stuff happening. So for example, Anthropic cannot provide service to the whole world. They can't. They had a, what is it, an 80x growth. They didn't plan for that. And so they're trying to figure out how do we service all these people. And I think, if you're in the position of like, how do we do it? The conclusion is we can't. So we're gonna have to, we don't have enough compute. We need to find a way to trim off people who can't afford it and get them out of the way. So I think you're seeing as a consequence of that. It's this unexpected stuff that showed up. You can imagine, if Anthropic could charge you a couple pennies, they probably would, if they had the compute and so on. They probably
They
would.
have the right to charge whatever they want as well.
Yeah, especially that now the game is changing. At the beginning it was like to attract hackers, but now they're attracting enterprise, and this is like a big game. So they can screw subscriptions, they will extract value from the enterprise.
Yeah, but those horror stories of these people that are using up their tokens so quickly, I mean, it's still going to drive a lot of people away.
Yeah, but for people it's very easy to go away from DeepSeek. But American company go to the DeepSeek.
Yeah, big
Well,
concern.
sure,
Yeah,
okay.
they really care about enterprise.
Yeah.
I think the $200 subscription was like
Drop in the bucket.
honestly, but
Oh.
it but in the long run, they would rather have, you know, most of their money comes from enterprise API costs, not from the subscription.
Enterprises will be subsidising us. That's
Yeah.
$200 a month.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's an argument about that, but yeah, it's definitely the case. Apparently internally they've said that like they're profitable on the subscription. There's enough people that don't use the full $200 that it actually makes it profitable.
yeah.
So it's not really totally subsidized. It would have to be if everyone maxed it out.
Isn't
But-
there a saying thing that the prices that we see
Yeah,
is
yeah.
25 times higher?
Yeah, it's
than
kind
it
of
costs?
like what the market will bear kind of thing, and they're trying to be a certain way because like people have taken like DeepSeek for against you know, the open source compute and measure the output, and it's like, you know, the same $200 plan only costs like $15. From what I read internally, it costs about $75 for a $200 plan usage on that when you average out everything. So they're still making money. That's why they're going to be profitable in 60 days, like a fully in the black company.
But this is only because people are not
Yeah.
using their full usage. This
Yeah.
is what they're finding out. Like Boris did an interview this week and explicitly said it. So the guy who asked him, I can't remember his name, whatever podcaster, influencer dude, very famous, asked Boris on his show, what do you say to people who are complaining about usage limits and so on? That was the question he posed, and Boris said, we're finding in our metrics that like almost no one is reaching their usage limit, and those who are, it's a minority. They're very loud in the community.
Yeah, they said it before. It was like something like 7%. So it's like when they say like, oh, this change is going to only affect 7% of people, it's because only 7% of people actually do that. It just so happens that like we're probably in that 7%.
The number of people that use
Is that 7% of people who use Claude Code or 7% of Claude subscription?
Subscription.
Getting all the $20?
Yeah.
Do they do that?
I think they're saying on the max plan. I don't know about the $20 plan.
Well, the number of people who reach the limit are not really the useful measure, I think, because a lot of people are gonna like stay just shy of the limit and maybe cut their usage to do that, you know?
Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, there's a lot of
But where workflows really help those people, because you kind of know when you're going to hit your usage windows, you've got metrics that are telling you. If we can automate our workflows, we can just have them run on Chrome job when we go to bed and to have work happening for us in that 5-hour window, or we can go into heavy fast mode, ultra code, like 6 hours before the end of the week. And what I like about the workflows is that it allows me to max my tokens, allows me to be that person that gets to the max, but it allows me to do a lot of sleep as well. So
Yeah, other than that Fluke, and I'm running 5 projects simultaneously, a bunch of different things going on. And other than that little in May or April, that little fluke that they had that they ended up calling back on, I've never in a year and 3 months have ever hit my usage limit. I've hit my 5-hour window limits, but never my weekly one until that was the first time ever. Now with workflows and rel loops or these things, you're gonna definitely hit it a lot. Like you're gonna have more opportunity to hit it, but I still think a majority of users in the Claude ecosystem, the enterprise users, are not actually the engineers. Like the engineers, yes, they're the ones maxing it out, but I think all these other people in the companies, the marketing departments, the sales, you know, all this kind of stuff, they're not. They're on the high subscription because they need it, but they never. I doubt they ever really hit it. They would have to, unless they started integrating workflows into like average chat usage, you know, like for lawyers. Like I don't know about that.
Does anyone here work at a company where all of your colleagues are using Claude? Like, raise your hand if you're working just 1, 2. Could you speak to the capability of like your colleagues, their ability to use Claude? Is it like they know what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing? On average, is it they don't know what they're doing? So they need help constantly. They're not really using their because they have no clue, they're not really using that many tokens. Would that be accurate?
It's hard to tell, like if they use that the framework that I provided before, then it's getting a lot better because the complaints that the results are shit becoming less and less. But the problem is they don't want to invest time to get into it, to understand the details, to come up with their own workflows, with their own methodology of how it would work for them.
Sure.
Like the expectation is, okay, I use Claude in the CLI and I give it 2 sentences and I want the perfect result, right?
Yeah.
And we all know that doesn't work. It will never work.
Yeah.
I also think that's how most people are using, even
Yeah.
engineers, like the engineers inside companies are like using like they're running one session, one-off commands. They're not diving into workflows and loops and, all those kind of things. So,
And then they're also annoyed, like, oh, I have to tap enter the whole time. Like, I'm just sitting there. Like, yeah, you need your fine-tuning. You need to come up with kind of your own workflow that works for you. You need to write tests to improve the quality of the agent and to let it run for like hours, right?
Sure.
Total, like some of my sessions run 2-3 hours or sometimes even overnight. They're like, how do you do that without sitting there doing this?
Well, remember, we started out at one time also, and maybe they're just later in the process, maybe they're just starting out with this stuff. All these people that were kind of mocking for not knowing how to use it. When we started out, we were the same way, right?
Yeah, sure, but it is a time investment. You
Yeah.
can't deny that, but then it's a question of is the result worth my time investment or not in the long run, right? I'd say yes, but for a lot of people, it's like they don't see it. They don't see, oh, I have to invest like 2 hours initially and then at least a full day each week to fine tune and keep up with the progression and all the new stuff. And then in that group, I'd say it splits into subgroups. One is like that reviews actually what Cloud Code did and looks at the pull requests and everything and decide, oh shit, I'm going to throw it out of the window. And the other 50% is like, I'm just going to set whatever it does, I don't care.
You're seeing the creation of the new developer ecosystem, right? So the need for developers before AI, people who can write code, don't need this anymore. But now there is this new type of developer you need. A couple weeks ago, we were calling it FDE. It doesn't really we haven't settled on a name yet. But you're seeing this new class of like the guy who knows what he's doing, he knows how to manipulate the harness, so that he can go to, like, for example, each of your colleagues, sit down with them, figure out what they're trying to do, and develop a better system for them. This is becoming, so it's like, there's an article that came out this week that sort of is speaking to this, where folks who are technically inclined, development inclined, are becoming now sought because they know what they're doing, right? Like if you know how to build software and you know how to manage the AI systems, you become incredibly powerful and you're sort of needed.
So this is the next generation of DevOps.
This is the next generation of developer, probably is better the way to put it.
But not prompt engineers.
It's not a prompt engineer. You got to know the harness. It's like you would walk into a company and you need to know like how to set up hooks and workflows and sub-agents and all this stuff. You need to be able to answer all these questions that maybe people are going to ask you or they're going to want help.
It's almost like a harness engineer. It's the
Yeah.
closest term you might find.
It's the new SAP consultancy. It's what it 10, 15 years ago.
It's good. I think it's.
Part of a SAP.
Yeah.
It really
IBM.
was.
It's the new IBM.
SAP has its own academy. Like if you are a SAP engineer, you go through their academy, which is like their internal program made you, at least back in the day, made you like a fluent SAP engineer. So you might expect something like that. Or with all these certificates and everything, you actually have to go through some sort of a formal, not education, but learning system way. Because the whole point of that is having people are talking about the same thing the same way. If you are a SAP certified certain things the same way every single one of you does that locally. So that kind of thing when you're coaching or teaching people to use Techlog code, it'd be very helpful to have like
So that's
common language people talk about, ways of explaining these concepts to people who don't know.
so Anthropic had the Anthropic Certified Architect course, which would give you that. The challenge I think for an FDE sort of person is how do you keep up with Codex and Anthropic? It's hard enough keeping up with Anthropic, but what if you're in an environment where they have both?
Yeah.
Because these workflows, like you would have had this problem with ALS. These workflows are really cool, and you go, well, how do I pivot ALS? But they won't work in Codex.
Yeah. They're
Well,
constrained to the.
No, but whatever they do, because it is so tied into the harness, they just won't. It'll be a different sort of
Right.
technology, and you've got to go, how do I configure? You almost need to make a skill as an abstraction. You say, I need a workflow. There's a fan out, fan in. Now, can you project it to Codex? Can you project it to Claude? And that's the same problem we see with skills, where you go and create skills plugins, and any of these libraries out there like GSD and that, they don't actually create core skills or Codex skills. They create
Generic.
canonical skills, and they project. They have a tool that projects them. We don't have to do the same thing for everything.
Yeah. It's like an omni.
The Babelfish again that I keep going back to. We need this Babelfish translator for both ecosystem or whatever ecosystem.
You need a transpiler for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Anthropic certification reminds me of the old Microsoft certified engineer. right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe in 3 years, those of you guys who are Anthropic engineers are going to be kind of locked into the Anthropic ecosystem. And, just there's so much momentum and investment in it that it's so difficult to switch. I've taken the other direction. I haven't even started using skills because I can just use prompts and it's manual and I'm copying and pasting, but for now I don't want to have to deal with all the different, because I'm using like 5-6 different harnesses, and I just want to be totally portable. So
But
in a way it's stupid, but in a way it's
portable across everything.
Because most skills are
Everyone's
constant.
using skill, but every one, it's all
Do they organize it the
Codex,
same way?
everything.
Why should we do it?
It's all.
If you're
it's like
repeating
a-
stuff, write a skill for
This idea of going into orgs and helping engineers uplift and learn how to do harness engineering kind of interests me. Because I can imagine that day to day they don't have time and mental capacity to go out and learn this stuff, and it's a moving target. And I imagine a lot of the engineers out there, it's probably an assumption, are more just prompting what inside Mighty and going, hi, can you write this for me and get it back? And I think if you're able to set up these harnesses and do like the Royal Fluke, you can become a 10x or a 100x engineer because you can get so much more done. They can be working 24/7, be parallel and all that sort of stuff. I think there's limitations at the moment on them being able to do that on big legacy brownfield systems, and that's something that I've sort of been looking over the past few days. But I think there's an opportunity there to go in and help them to be able to adopt the stuff that we're talking about that we take for granted. I'm curious, and maybe people in the room know, like, where are engineers at in different corporations with being able to adopt a lot of this new capability technologies and things like this? Could they take all the workflows and start applying it tomorrow? Or is it just going to create more overhead and headache for them and lots of PRs they have to review and that kind of thing? Does anyone know?
I think the answer to that is like, this is a complicated answer. Like, you're gonna bring in someone to your organization who needs to know the specifics and details of all of these constructs, and needs to know very well the trade-offs in using them. Needs to know, like, if I walk into a team and I do an assessment and that whole team is like not savvy with AI, that's gonna have an effect, and that needs to determine how I design this thing for them. Because like these people are, I don't know, they don't know enough, and therefore they're gonna have these results that are not gonna be what the CEO wants, for example. I think all of that becomes part of I think that's what makes you someone who can charge a shitload of money. Like that, the answer to that is it's your judgment call, and you're gonna be hired because you have that judgment call and you know very well like all these little things. So that's why I'm saying like this is the new form of the developer. The new developer is this person who knows I walk into an organization, half the people are using Codex, half are using Anthropic. I'm very familiar with both of these systems. I can see how, I can interview each of the people in the organization and I can say, okay, I can develop this orchestration that works across them all because I understand how this works. That's what you're gonna be paid for that knowledge. So does anyone in an organization today able to do that? I think the answer is probably not likely. It's extremely low. Based off of even what you're saying, I think is like the same story across all organizations. Maybe only one person in the org knows and has been keeping up with the harness stuff. Everyone else is like, they're under this belief that the AI is so good that they can type a sentence and their problems will be solved. And this comes to like, when did you enter into the AI game? You have folks who are entering into the AI game a couple months ago. They're entering in with, hearing all this talk about it, and it's like, wow, this thing is so good, it's so magical. Their understanding is completely different from someone who started picking this up 2 or 3 years ago and has grown up with all these tools and knows all of the capabilities, but also the what doesn't work.
I think that's the path though that most people don't need to do it. Like if you're an FDE or whatever it is and you're going in and you're doing this shit because it's all in your brain, the other technique is to go, I'm just going to encode my domain knowledge into an agent like Hermes or Kyberbot or OpenClaw, and I'm going to make the agent available to people as their partner. It's the agent that decides whether, if they, for whatever reason, a software developer needs to know how to do plugins or hooks or whatever, he should consult with an agent that you created for that company, not consult with me.
That's only your business model, right? In the end, it doesn't. That's just you scaling.
It's
Yeah.
no,
You can
it's not
only
just
work
me
for-
scaling. It's how the scale has to go. We're going to move more and more to off-the-shelf agents that companies pay for. So if we want to be in the game, could I just learn all these technologies, or we can learn and translate it to agents and start selling agents.
If you're on the receiving side, so I'm either an engineer or an engineering manager or a CTO inside a company, are you going to trust an agent though, or are you going to trust a person?
I would trust an agent, to be honest, over time, because most, I've been around for a long time, most software developers, including myself, that wants to tell you, so if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit, and you baffle them and they go, okay, cool, whatever you say. But most humans don't actually know outside their lanes.
I
But
feel
the
like
agent does.
I feel like an agent would have to be very efficacious, and so it would really have to understand your specific context
Yeah.
and give results immediately, and then the person would go, okay, everything I ask this agent, it tells me what to do, and it's just done.
So that's just pairing the agent with a self-learning brain.
Yeah. It's
So-
like a more research.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think
The
you're
brain.
seeing this manifestation of someone who knows their shit walks in, helps the company or the team with their problem, unlocks them, and eventually that team or company hits a wall again and requires you to be there to unblock them again. Because the central issue here is that no one there in that team knows what the hell they're doing. They have no idea how to read these systems and speak to the model. They don't know that. So what does it mean? I mean, I think it's clear to say that no one has any idea what, like right now we're in this big fucking playground, right? It's the Wild West right now. The rules are being written. There's no best practices established. The folks who are walking into these companies and unblocking them and then getting called back are just making a shitload of money, right? This is why we know that, yeah, you're at 500,000 plus if you're doing FTE work, right? Per year, it's you're making more money than before AI, but you got to know what you're doing.
But then the companies that, because they have to keep hiring help and that help is not readily accessible, they eventually collapse and then they start valuing training and they value catching up with the hardest.
The other side I'm seeing is the graduates coming out of the school from the computer science degree who have learned this in the past 2 years. They've been cheating on all of their assignments using this. They've learned, they've developed the skills. And once you onboard those guys, they're cheaper and they're faster and they're learning much quicker and giving you solutions.
Does that happen?
Yeah, that's probably like half the rate.
I think that's, we're hearing media news about that now, about the juniors now should be here because they are on top of this technology and they're cheaper.
Yeah, that's what the Amazon CEO just came out and said. He did like a whole interview saying like he was in like a CEO meeting with all these big CEOs in Silicon Valley. Everyone was like, oh, now we can cut down our workforce and we don't have to hire juniors anymore. And he was like, you guys are the dumbest people I've ever heard in my life. They're the cheapest, they're the most AI pilled, they're actually generally more ahead with the AI stuff than everybody else. He's like, their target is actually to hire more of the juniors.
Question with that though is, are people going to be more aligned, like the average consumer and the business, with what comes from that, right? Which what we're seeing is, you look at like Kodak, the big AI companies, they're using more junior engineers and they're just rolling out stuff with bugs every day. And I mean, just like I got a big fight this week with the Codex team, Codex team, because I just called a bunch of front end engineers making shiny buttons, because like literally just breaking stuff, just vibe coding, breaking stuff, and not even looking at the code. That's one of the problems we had with OpenClaw this week, was the Codex team just breaks everything, and they're not even looking at it. Because most of them were junior engineers or they got acquired, and so they got acquired, just like this ex-CEO, and they're like, this sounds cool. And so, do consumers have the taste, and do businesses have the taste for, okay, this breaks every day? Because I see small businesses, that's what I manage, like hundreds of small businesses on that side, and they don't have the taste for that. They don't want anything broken. They'd rather just be stable. I've had a couple businesses go back and say, I really don't want to have agents, actually. They're like, I'm fine just using Codex or Cloud Code. I don't want Hermes or OpenClaw because I can't have any instability in the business. I can't be broken. I can't afford to have to hire someone to come back in or use an agent for it.
He was saying the same thing essentially. It wasn't just about juniors, it was about everyone. It's like right now there's this like kind of reactive thing. It's like, oh, we can cut the bottom line and boost our bottom line if we get rid of people. But like he and a bunch of other people that are like really smart people I follow is like, this is like a fluke in the industry. You're gonna start losing people at first, and then they're gonna all end up getting hired back, or there's gonna actually be growth in the company for senior and junior engineers. So I can see exactly why that'll happen. It made sense the way he was describing it. It's like they're looking at like a company like Block laying off 8,000 people and their stock prices go up, and they're like, oh, we can do this if they can do it, and then they're doing it and they're gonna instantly regret it. Like this has happened a lot this week. But I think a lot of the firing happening right now is actually less about AI's taking over these positions. It's more like they overhired in the first place. Yeah. This is a big thing. Like Block, like Jack Dorsey's famous for like way overhiring and then firing. It's like it's a normal cycle. See the same thing at Twitter, right?
Yeah.
So
there's also the CEO psychosis as well.
Yeah.
Just like
Well, exactly. That's the thing. Is they're like, oh, like we can just automate all this stuff, and we don't need senior people anymore. And
that's also a junior problem too. Like the junior engineers are just thinking like they don't have context of how to build tests or anything, and they're literally just rolling stuff out there. They're like, our users will test for us.
I feel like we're gonna have the next wave for everybody.
Scream test. Who screams the loudest?
We're gonna have the next level of DevOps, which is come in and prevent all this garbage getting
I'm talking to these engineers at the AI companies. They don't know what DevOps or QA is. Their whole like at all.
Claude does that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sorts that stuff out.
We hired what we call like a QA team this week, and I had to force it on everyone because they're like, oh, the AI can test. And I'm like, no, actually, I hired a couple people for $4 an hour in Africa. I just did this testing, and they found way more bugs than the AI did. We spent like $100,000 in inference this week. We didn't find any fucking bugs. It just says it works, right? It just says everything. It just says it's good, and then we keep doing releases. They fucking break. And so instead, I was like, we hired a couple of people in Africa on old-ass computers, just walking through manual QA testing, and it's like, wow, we got a release that's almost stable because, you know, we're actually relying on people to look at it and test it. I've not been able to get AI to test its own code that well.
It's the understanding of upstream and downstream. You fix the thing, but you broke 10 things down.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the gateways are broken, everything.
But
It's just not being taken over.
when you got your juniors doing all that shit, don't you also have your seniors and your architects coming in and your UAT people going, well, how do we make workflows for each of those?
I've seen senior people act like junior people. I don't know, like, I see senior, like, if you look at like Vincent, a very senior engineer, but with so much compute, like, it's basically just, I see them coding a lot more velocity, but way less testing. And I'm seeing this with our companies in Japan now too, where like, they're just like, you know, even senior engineers are just, you know, coding stuff out, but they can't keep, I guess humans don't have the contextual window capacity to actually keep up with AI's code.
Now, this is where I think a lot of the, like, we don't see it as much here, but the senior engineers in most
Microsoft just told 100,000.
senior developers in most companies aren't shifting to AI. They're not thinking, oh, how do we... They should be elevating the abstraction of their job, not elevating the technology of their job. They shouldn't go, I can produce more code.
Yeah.
They should be going, okay, well, what does an architect do? What does a UAT tester do?
But I think
How
all
do
these
I
things are
automate
being
that?
defined. Like, all these things are, we're in this interesting moment where things are literally being recalibrated on the fly. Every single week, they're sort of like, okay, well, now we're a bit smarter than last week. We God bless those who paid the sacrifice for us to learn how, you know, how we got here. And I think that's like what's happening too. That's the clear pattern. That there are people who are on the frontier who have to make assumptions. They're making mistakes, very costly ones. And then the smart people are looking at that and saying, okay, well, what's the solution to that? And we know that when you're doing problem space solutions, you're just buying new problems is really what you're doing, right? So someone's got to go and pay that price.
They do, but half our meeting today was on workflows, and workflows are very, very close to the answer.
I agree. I completely agree, yeah.
Like when I run a 2-hour 7-agent system, I don't look at it and it just works. It's because I've got all those agents in place, but it's so hard to set up. Now we've got workflows and you go, well, whatever I want to do, a UAT pass, an architecture phase,
Put them in a
coding
workflow.
phase that requires, I'll make a workflow for it, and that we'll be able to elevate it that way. But you need people to think, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm just going to figure out, reverse engineer how I do it and make it work.
Which is not happening a lot. The whole like, how do you think about those sort of things? I spoke with like 2 of the guys from Anthropic this week, and because we were doing like trying to figure out like, oh, how can we put new features into, my thing was like Claude Desktop, and I was like, oh, I have this thing where I'm having an agent spawn the Claude Code Desktop and actually use computer use to test a plugin or whatever, and they were like, you're doing that? Nobody hears. We don't know what that is. Like, we're not doing it. I was like, what do you mean you guys like? This is crazy for me to hear. Like, you guys within Anthropic, there's no use cases for this, and they were like super excited to hear that someone's doing this. They're like, whoa, this is all new to us. What are you supposed to make of that?
Yeah, because it's so simple too.
Yeah.
Like to create a UAT planner, so can you go just use Playwright and test the bloody application?
Yeah, but yeah, and then so it seems obvious to someone like you and me, but not to other people. There's just all this like weird stuff that's happening right now, right? Like there's just, I don't know, like I chalk it up to the whole Wild West concept. We're all trying to figure out what's best and we don't know. We have ideas and we need someone to pay for them.
I would add also a few things, like the way I see it, first of all, we can automate most of the things probably if we architect it correctly. Even the tests themselves, writing the tests, doing full end-to-end tests. And I think that the mindset should be how to protect the system from breaking up from one side, even if the most, non-technical person write anything, so the system still don't break up. And from the other side, how to automate most of the stuff as much as possible, as reliable as possible. And the system should be self-healing itself also. And this is most of it is prompt engineering.
How do you define self-healing? Because you tell GPT 5.5 and you try to prompt it, it's just going to start refactoring everything.
Yeah.
And it's going to break, and it's going to be like, this is, you know.
That's not
I tried to heal 100 lines, and I ended up with 10,000. It literally goes in and it's like, well, you had a boo-boo, but the rest of the system didn't look good either. So I rebuilt it.
Let's say,
I like self-healing, by the way.
yeah, but let's say I'm the only technical person in my team, so maybe I just speak for myself. But the way I wrote the Claude.mp file, like it's like very specific, and it's doing not only unit tests, it's doing full end-to-end tests, and it's doing it every step, and it's committed every step. So if something breaks, it's documented there, and it usually know how to self-fix itself. Like I one time even run some tests just to do something, and the test didn't succeeded, so it fixed the code itself without I told it anything.
How do you know?
Just automatically.
How do you know it didn't fix the test to pass the thing?
Because it worked.
No, it made the test pass, but your code is still broken.
That's what happens, you know.
Again,
I don't trust that test at all.
Because it'll do the job. It'll do whatever it takes to make it work.
The only way I've solved for that though is multiple agents.
Yeah.
Like one agent versus another agent. As long as you have an adversarial agent, like against the main agent, I've had self-healing work in that way, but it's expensive because I need two agents combating against each other. One agent said, "Nah, you fucked this up. Like you're not in charge of this. I'm in charge of this," and then.
And that's where it becomes it's not a prompt engineering solution. If you go to Claude MV, prompt engineer the shit out of it, it doesn't scale. It's an agent harness engineering issue.
Yeah.
Because you've got to go, okay, well you do your job and I'll hand it off to someone else without the context of how you were thinking. Because that's where half the hallucinations are. You keep the context in place and you go, okay, you're going to check it from 6 different vectors.
Have you tried
That's
using
harness engineering.
Have you tried using spec-driven development? So you start with
Yeah, that's how I use it. I started using one agent. Now I have like a fleet of agents working against each other. If I'm going to do anything automated, like I don't use /global, for example, but if I do, then I'll have multiple agents in there. I love the ping pong.
So I mean not prompting, but actually outside of that, getting something to generate a spec. And the spec is testable that you can prove the code satisfies the spec.
So like TDD.
Sorry.
TDD.
Like TDD, yeah.
I've used TDD, and then how it worked was the tests are failing. I said, why are these tests failing? Can you fix it? Okay, they fixed it, it's passing them. And I go and test it, it's not working. Like, how did this test pass? I started using mock API. Like, okay, yeah, you were going to use mock API, it's going to pass.
The underlying TDD you might use Gherkin, and Gherkin specifies what the system actually has to do.
So
and the test only proved that the Gherkin's been satisfied by the code.
So now we get back to harness engineering because you just introduced TDD, BDD, we need E2E, and now we need UAT. So, and all of them are 4 levels of abstraction that all attack the problem from different directions. So recently I had code, all the UAT worked. And going, why the fuck is this not working? UAT figured out that there was a react state sort of thing, like unit test passed. But when you actually used it under pressure, it didn't work. So it comes back to agent harness engineering that says we're going to do TDD, BDD, E2E, and UAT.
Yeah, yeah. And at least you're not dependent on the LLM that's going to hallucinate and go, you don't do this when there are parts.
Yeah, but you should still be having an orchestrator that's running all 4 of them because they all come back, sometimes they come back in contradictions. And you need someone to look at the contradictions and make a decision as to which is the best way to do it.
So one thing I've had success with just recently, I've been doing an experiment with both Anthropic and Codex. I said, okay, can we rebuild Baldur's Gate 3? I have unlimited tokens. Both of you, you're competing against each other, and it's been running for about a week straight. Both of them. One decided to, 4.8 decided to build, like it was having problems hallucinating, and it was having issues with, okay, it looks like it works, but it fucking doesn't work, right? So it decided, okay, I'm going to start spawning up these other specialized agents that are just like dumb users. So I'm going to create the dumbest user agent. Then literally, like, it's for test, it's a harness on it, and said, okay, basically try to use the app, but you're dumb as fuck. Like literally, that was the prompt. And it basically would go in and complain, have all these problems, and it would go back to the engineering, the main orchestrator, and it got way ahead. So right now, Anthropic 4.8 is way ahead of Codex. The game's playable, except for the graphics side, because it built a harness with like 4 or 5 personas. It's just one's really good, and it just uses computer use and says, "Can you actually use this?" And it says, "Yeah, I tried for about 60 minutes, and all these fucking things are broken. I've written specs and issues for all of them." It feeds it back to the main agent, and that's been the only thing that's got it through in terms of building that like actual user application. So that's been a fun experiment I've done this last week. I spent thousands of dollars.
I was gonna say, I'd hate to see the bill on that.
Oh yeah, it's been thousands of dollars, but it's been fun because just seeing what they get to, and having to steer it every once in a while. GPT 5.5 is still broken because it just keeps adding more code. It's like 2 million lines of code. It's really like crazy, and it's like this really works, and it keeps going off, but it might catch up. We'll see.
Are you using both on Pi or XI or?
Oh, I only use XI. I don't touch anything below that. If it's like if I'm running an experiment, 1 versus 1, because it was just a fun. I wanted to see could they rebuild the video game and make it better.
Did you rebuild it in Rust?
No. I probably should have actually. No, but the goal was to test both models, right? So because I've been testing 4.8, right, for the last week, and then testing new GPU. So I was like, okay, can either of them 1 versus 1 rebuild the video game from scratch? If I give them the code and full access to computers, which will succeed first? So far, GPT's
using Unreal or Unity or some engine.
No, so at first when you're building video games, you have to build the engine first, and like not like the graphics side.
Right.
Unreal is good if you're going to build everything. Like it would have taken months to that. So like the mathematics, the logic, and actually getting the game to play like in the back end, so the full server, and then the graphics side. So right now, Anthropic's testing out graphics and getting everything to graphically work.
Oh, there's a better way to do that.
Well, the thing is, the test is to see them do it themselves and see how far they get, right? And so.
Has like 5.5 and 5.4 just been completely nerfed this week on like OpenAI.
5.5 had like 2 or 3 days of just really bad.
Yeah, it's like a constant reconnecting, failing, slow as fuck.
That's part of why I got in a fight with Codex team this week. So, if anyone's in the Discord server for OpenClaw, you saw that I had a big fallout with them and called them all pieces of shit. Like, I said they were just front end like button designers, and they got really offended. So, but the problem was because that's really what they are. A lot of like the engineering teams that are doing R&D are very different from the deployment and implementation teams. Tibbs is great, but like when they acquire companies, this is a big problem with the big AI companies right now. They acquire companies, they bring these CEOs in, and then they don't have any skills, so they're just all live coding, and so you end up with like just broken features because they're just fucking around. And the engineers don't listen to, because they're conflict averse, right? So a lot of the engineers versus like the other vibe coders that got acquired are just kind of like, oh, like this is broken. They're like, fuck it, let's roll it out, right? Let's break off, let's break goals, let's break everything in Codex.
Doesn't make me very confident. It's really like dealt with this week, which is trash. Like a lot of time spent wasted.
I think goals finally got working last night. They pinged me. I think goals is working in the Codex desktop app. I mean, it's working in CLI. I care mostly about the desktop app because my business users, but I think it's kind of working now. I'm always
There was an update this morning, but I haven't checked.
But
There's
every
a Windows
update
update.
brings something else.
Yeah.
It's always a progression, but that's what I said. Like the implementation team is the quality of devs on that side versus the R&D team, very different.
Yeah, there was a Windows update that came out this morning from Codex. I think this is it.
That was the big announcement this week.
10 hours ago. Computer use now works on Windows, so Codex can take action on your Windows computer.
Legacy company.
And Windows support for Codex. Yeah, it's a lot of people. I mean, if you're looking at Microsoft, for example.
Codex in terms of Codex CLI or just in this?
Codex desktop app.
Desktop app, yeah.
It's kind of broken, but it
I mean, it will always be broken.
Well, there's a push to get it fixed. I think is what we're seeing here.
Windows support in general is huge.
Yeah, Windows support is pretty big. So
yeah,
especially like I'd say half of my small business users use Windows computers. So and I just don't support it because like I don't trust AI on a Windows computer and downloading stuff and security. I just
the sandbox.
You
You easily break Windows. We talked about.
Windows is
You are
crazy.
one
bro.
registry key away.
Yeah.
from
We talked about that last week. Yeah, it's. I mean.
That's also because the Apple all intelligence team has built all of these new hooks and like what is it the tenant code or something that Codex can build on top of. Windows does not have that natively built in. So you're going to have it run into each other. Like, I don't use Apple Intelligence, but the team's built a lot of cool features, especially in accessibility, that Codex and Claude are just writing on.
Oh yeah,
I was really surprised. I don't know if anybody's looked at the code for computer use inside the plugin. It's the Sky company they acquired. It's really simple. It's literally just, I thought it was something really complex. It's just like, oh, we're just using what Apple built already. But we've just
Oh, the Apple script thing?
Apple script.
I think what's interesting is like what you said about the issue that you ran into, like coming back to like the whole like self-healing thing. So Daisy did a talk from Anthropic. Daisy, the one who made the plugin system from Anthropic, who's on the core team for Claude Code, and did a talk about how basically how she uses Claude Code. And what was interesting was that she spoke a lot about like the way that they're building their features in Claude Code is that they would have this thing run overnight, and it might even take up to 2 days. So like they say like I want feature X, and then it goes into some fucking system that builds it, and they don't look at it for 2 days or so. So the whole concept of like we were talking about self-healing, and it's like, well, there's problems with it. Maybe you end up in this scenario where it introduces a mock framework as a way to circumnavigate. I think Anthropic looks at that and says, the problem to solve here is to prevent the mocks from showing up, but not to stop the whole idea. Like they just took it to its absolute end where they're like, well, what if we just blocked it from doing mocks? Like, what's the next problem that shows up? And then they solve the next problem. They keep going and keep going. And then they end up with a system like they have now, where they can submit, build this feature, or here's a bug fix, and it comes out on the other side like working just fine. You know, like that. How do you get there? You need someone who's incredibly capable and understands the harness really, really well.
I was like, because aren't they just they're just adding to the prompt saying no more block, or so no more mocks, no more this.
I don't know. I think it goes even beyond that. I don't think it's like even a prompt change. It's more like you look at that and you're saying, of all of the levers that I can pull, which one do I pull to stop this? It's probably not a prompt change. It's probably a hook.
Yeah.
Maybe a hook that says if a package comes in, if the LLM is trying to add a package to this code system, block it. You know, it might take a form like that.
So like in the automotive reviewer, like the orchestrator.
You can also possibly fit into there because of the way that thing works. It's kind of interesting.
I feel like they're trying to push everyone to their auto orchestrator.
They definitely are. That was actually in her talk. She said like that was the one take. She said the one takeaway that if I can give to anyone here is use that.
But that's just a second agent at the end of the day. It's just an agent reviewing it, keeping it in line.
Yeah. But getting into the nuance of like, what do you do if you're in a system? Like, imagine, I don't know how big your system is, but if I were to imagine that it's massive, and you didn't want to be in a situation where you're saying, well, Claude adds mocks, and therefore I don't trust the way that it's building a test. You don't want that to be your dead end. You need to move past that problem. That's a block. You want to bring in someone who knows how to unblock that and gets you to the next whatever the block is, right? That's the role of this FDE. That's the role of this person who knows their shit, who can walk into an organization and knows all the capabilities of the harness. That's the kind of the point of where we're going all the way back to how we started, opened up this whole talk. Like, learning these primitives is incredibly important for that reason. So that you can walk into one of these organizations and you're like, I know what to do. The answer is not to avoid it. The answer is, here's how you proceed. Does that make sense?
So, one thing I've been learning is the better engineers who are using AI, they have their own set of tools that they're using. It could be their agents, could be their harness, and they kind of scale it up. I've seen that the best engineers I used to work with, they would have their own scripts running. They had automating most of the stuff, so rather than calling a QA or some migration engineer, hey, can you do it? Can I do it myself?
Yeah.
Test everything myself first and then ship it. And I'm seeing the same trend happening in the AI engineering side too. The best engineers, they're building their own tools. It could be artists, I don't know how they're building, but I can't see inside what they're building. They're using to ship the velocity or the amount that they're shipping. So my challenge every day is like I learn something new on my own side, I build something,
Yeah.
and I see lots of presentations too, but I see the output. I don't see how they're engineering
It's a
all
secret.
these things under the hood.
Yeah. Company secret.
So to your point, actually, it's something I'm kind of thinking about. Like earlier, you were talking about like you don't use skills. I would really like kind of recommend you start thinking about it this way. One thing I've started to do instead of spec driven, I ask the AI, what tools do we need to do this? And so like for my game engine side, like building the game flat out for the first couple of days was garbage, right? But instead, okay, what do we need? What tools do we need to build a game? Totally different development cycle. And I've been using this a lot in my code. Is okay, what tools do we need? Like, there's two ways to look back. So you say you have agents that look back and say, where did we make these into skills? Where do we make these into tools? Like based on how we build things and look, like, you know, the aggressive side looking at it. Or there's the forward thinking of just like I don't say it's like tool driven development, but like asking the agent what tools do you need and then making the tools first. I've had some success with that this last week, especially on the game side. Like it actually decided that rather than using Unity, like it'd be better to build its own engine builder. Like building an engine flat out was wrong, but building an engine that could make games and do it's had a lot more success. And so that's where the only time I had to steer both of them, because it ended up just a bunch of junk code at the beginning making a game. But if it says, okay, what are all the tools you need? That's added a lot of success.
This is so incredibly interesting because what you're talking about is a way of thinking about things, how you're thinking about things. So when we talk about like, should you get a junior, or should you get a senior? That's not like the right question. The right question is more like, can you find someone like this? Someone who is thinking in a very specific way that is like what you need for how you're building AI systems. You cannot categorize it as it's a junior or it's a senior. It's not one of those. It's something else. It's like someone who knows you're choosing this because you know why. If I were to ask you why are you doing this, you just explained it. I'm doing it because the engine to build the engine is like necessary. I know that out of all my experience and wisdom of working with this shit for the last 2 years. That's the person that you're trying to like hire and get. That would be the most ideal person rather.
People who can identify what the problem is that AI is having, that it's not doing right. So that AI generally can't answer its own problem and go, look, I'm trying to do your problem, and look at it and go, no, you're doing it the wrong way. And like what you said, like, why don't, instead of trying to build the game, why don't you build the engine that generates it? You're the one who's able to identify AI struggling with this task.
AI is great. Like it's actually funny because like there's internally at OpenAI they said like the real future, what they really believe, what Sama thinks is like AGI should just first thing it does is build its own tools, and you don't need a harness. It should just be like this is like the internal side thinking of like we don't really care about these tools. Like the real test on our end is if you ask it a prompt, it starts building its own tools and building its own harness, building its own plugins, and then eventually it starts building what you want. It really specs out what it needs first. And like I'd say OpenClaw has been largely a failure because of our releases lately. But what we have succeeded on is building tools to build things. Like the releases suck and they keep breaking, but tons of fucking tools. Like if you're not using like Peter's repository, like it saved me a ton of time on the Mac OS, all the tools, and all the scripts and runbooks. And so like you were talking about earlier, like, people are learning from the mistakes of others, and people blowing millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We're getting tons of tools. And it, like that's where I've had success really quickly is looking at their failures and like the open source tooling side. And you know, there's so many great tools that just my agents have had so much more success like building tools first and then using tools. And then it's like, okay, the rest is cake.
Is there any long-term experience in maintaining those tools? Because I see often when you take that approach, I support it, I see it the same way, but all of a sudden the other problem pops up. Someone needs to maintain these tools and take them further and see that it doesn't have any regression on existing things, and so now you shift your scope towards a whole different problem that's kind of new that you didn't have before.
What I'm seeing is, I mean, on that end, I see everyone that's using the tools and their agents find a problem and then they file the issue, they file a PR. As long as there's a maintainer maintaining it, then you're seeing some of these tools like, because I was really nervous, like Peter's got like 50 million tools, but I'm seeing many people are using it, their agents are finding issues, and then just, he has a sweeper that checks in and then updates them as they go. So, because I had the same fear. I was like, just abandoning tools. But
exactly.
One of the interesting things. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one last comment. I saw a tendency, like when I worked with JavaScript developers, for the most simple problem, they would pull in an NPM module, right? Like removing trading white spaces. Like why the fuck? Like, that was years ago where supply chain attacks were not really a thing, so it was not a problem. But I can see the same thing happening here. Like for the most simple problem, you would create a tool, and a tool, and a tool, and then you have thousands of tools. No one knows what they're doing, no one's maintaining them.
And they become rental.
Yeah, exactly, and they become a burden, they become a tech debt all of a sudden, because this approach, like, create a tool first to build the actual tool that you want, or it solves your problem, like, becomes your problem.
If your tool chain breaks, you're screwed.
And that tool, you don't even know what's happening anymore, because you're relying on all your tools, and it's like, yeah, it works. I don't know why, I don't understand it.
One of the things that Anthropic says that their approach to this is that when a new model comes out and new capability is present in the new model, that you need to reassess. Yeah, because maybe some of them, some of those need to get thrown out.
Yeah.
And
but then you have a new problem. Now you need someone who evaluates that after each new release of the harness and the model. So you need a team that is maintaining your tools, keep them up to date, and reevaluating constantly.
See, that's where I'm like not super on the self-healing side, but I do see AI agents maintaining tools well. Like my tools that I use and all the ones my agents are maintaining the tools really well. Like, and whenever it finds something, I mean, it's just whether you believe in open source or not. Like Peekaboo, I've been improving Peekaboo for the last week because it's like it's good. But once I hacked into Sky and I just said, okay, well, everyone should have all the Sky's capabilities. I've just been putting them into Peekaboo so everyone can use it. And that's just like an agent choice, and you know, it's just well. So I think that I don't. What I'm disagreeing with, I don't think you need a team. I do think you need someone owning it.
That was exaggerated, but like in a big enterprise, 100,000 employees, you have 10,000 tools, who's maintaining them? Is it like DevOps approach, each team maintaining their own tools, you build it, you run it, you maintain it, or is it because those tools, like it's company-wide, you need regression, safety, like you start changing tools, and all of a sudden some tools become essential in kind of a framework approach, so others rely on them. So you can't let your agent just change the whole thing. That will work for you, but that won't work.
Well, how
for
legacy
others.
works is they then just take what's open source, they wrap it, they then start selling it to everyone else, and then it's out of date within a month because they're not updating it, right? So
yeah, but now we're talking about everyone is building their tools that work for them, right?
Yeah.
And then you create thousands, 10,000s of tools, and then other people like yours, and it's all a big mess. I see like NPM hell happening here.
So I think tools will head towards recipes rather than code, and if they're going to go towards recipes, then probably the domain-specific language that says how should the tool look, and you'll just take it off a shopping system and say, I want this recipe, and I'll let my current model build the tool, having an understanding of my system and what that tool's trying to do. So the code is on demand, and if you build that sort of system, rather than someone managing it and actually build the system, it can have all sorts of stuff to look for regressions and edge cases and stuff like
that's
that.
OpenAI's like their belief in the future is that they want a model that just builds the tools on demand without using anything out there. You might just recreate what's on open source, but like from a security perspective, it's like if we can just our model can just build what you need when you need it without you even having to care or ask it, and it works. That's what they consider as like AGI.
Like ephemeral. Like for this one-time use, I built this tool. After I throw it away.
Yeah,
a similar one, I build a new one from scratch.
Exactly. Based on all the knowledge that exists out there, and what you learned from the first time around, it just builds it better next time.
My question to you is, I have a team of two development teams. One with actually I'm a developer, I'm a marketer, so I have two development teams in Chiang Mai and also in Myanmar. So with one of the developer and me, we create some project. It's really fast, really super base as a backend example. Another team, we have a team of the organic people. We work on like e-commerce and these kind of stuff. My question to you is, what do you think is the right thing for the future? Because some people say that we only need one software engineer with an AI knowledge to create performance. And other business already coming up in China for OPC, 1% performance goal.
It is everywhere.
What's your opinion? What's your thought? What's the
Are you asking me from like should you fire your teams right now and save money and put it in your pocket, or are you asking me to architect for you?
What will be the right insight for the next 3 years?
Because it depends on your capability and what you're doing. Like, I could be a one-person company because I know what I'm doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's not a, you were just talking earlier, it's not senior dev, or it's just who are you hiring and the quality of those people.
Yeah, if I only with my founder, I will have to because I don't have the knowledge of all the tools and stuff.
I don't think people should think about things like, I need to not rely on people. I think you should just have the people that you need, they're the qualities you need, and not worry about what someone like, I think Gary was talking about this yesterday, like, everyone's like this doomer, like there's only going to be 2 companies in the future, and everyone's going to be one-person companies. No, you really just hire who you need, you find the skills you need, and it's not like you're going to magically be a billionaire. It just doesn't, like, there's this thought process that you can be a one-person company, and that's fine. There's going to be there's a lot of one-person companies that already exist. It's called a small business. And so you just hire who you need based on your skills and what you like. Don't worry about being dependent on someone. That's part of life. Humans are dependent on people. We have to be. And if you develop the skills you can, but know that you're never going to keep up with most of the engineers in here. Just never going to happen. And so you have to be able to rely on people that's their skill set. Anyone else would say?
Who's your audience? Like enterprises are very different from startups, and within enterprise you have finance or banks, you have insurances, you have health providers. Like if you only work with startups and then think, oh, I'm doing a great job, and all of a sudden a bank approaches you and like, can you be my architect? You will fail. For sure.
Now, I will say what you can focus on instead is the capacity of those people that are using AI. So like when you're thinking about the capabilities of your team, right? Don't think about it as like I'm a one person, I need to do everything myself. But is everyone on your team, are they AI pilled enough, or are they skilled enough, and do they think about things from the logic perspective? Like if you can upgrade your team at all, I would have them take like an online logic course. Logic 101 is the #1 thing, like how logic gates work. Like just basic logic is enough for most people to understand and work with AI competently.
Oh, my program right now is I have my business client, my client SME owner and some of the regional business in Myanmar. When I can contact my CTO, the main developer who develop the product for me, they have a hard time for me. Sometimes things break, I don't know how to fix. And other developer that doesn't know it because there are only 2 people.
So you're saying your CTO is not very good at, does he not live here? Is he like a war-torn Myanmar?
He's also in Chiang Mai sometimes.
Oh, so there's a thing called Grab. Go over to his house, you knock on his door, and you say, wake the fuck up.
No, he's in. It's very hard to contact him.
But then you should write documentation and not overcomplicate things. If he writes something or develops something that no one else can understand, it's shit.
Yeah, he needs to be able to document things down, and if he's using AI and not document, like, you should have documentation to the point of your code that an AI can pick it up and fix it if it's broken, right? Like it's a worst case emergency, but also it's a team dynamic if like, is he a full-time employee or is he just a contractor?
Full-time.
How much you pay him?
Like $2,000 per month.
Okay, I mean, I guess that's not bad for Myanmar. So I mean, like I said, that's a communication issue with your CTO, and say when the systems are down, our customers are down, you need to be available. In fact, I'll buy you a new cell phone that is just for emergencies. So that way, if there's an emergency, you call on that cell phone, that one's always on. But do not call it unless it's always on. This is like a communication thing with management of a team. It's not really a code issue. I can tell from what you're explaining it is like, you're like, should I fire my CTO and replace him with AI? Probably not. But,
replace with somebody reliable.
yeah. Or communicate in a way to figure out what your needs are. Like, I will defend developers all day long on this because a lot of the time people don't explain to developers what their needs are. Like, if you say, okay, the system is down, I need you, this is part of your pay. And then what do you need from me to be able to answer your phone at 2 a.m. and fix the system? And they say, okay, I want more pay. Okay, cool, that's an agreement between people.
Yeah.
That's what we call a contract.
I think what we're seeing here too is that when problems are showing up, it's starting to hit me that the way to categorize this is that this is a you problem and it requires a you solution. Like you can't, I don't think you can grab a solution off the shelf of like other companies doing this, I need to do it. No. This is like a problem that is very specific to you. And I think this is how everyone needs to start viewing their shit. Like it's a you problem and the solution is a you solution. It's not like, what is Anthropic doing? They're spending millions on their tokens. You can't do that. Yeah, so the you solution is like, that's hard. That's why you're gonna have to pay someone a shitload of money to come in and, you know, basically solve your problem.
I don't know that it's all like there's a lot of thinking philosophy going on. I like some of the videos that Y Combinator have been doing recently around AI native companies and the thought process between having an AI native.
Actually, can I interrupt you just before you go on? Because since people are leaving, we're at 12, so if you want to leave, go for it. I know we're over. Announcement is that next week, Saturday, we're doing the Claude event here. This is like a developer-centric one. We are looking for speakers, so if you have something that you would like to, 15-minute lightning talk, submit it over to me or Ian. So that's next week from 10 a.m. to 1.
Yeah. The actual event will be like 11 to 1, but we'll have coffee and food and networking. And then we'll do food at the cow soy place afterwards as well.
Nice.
I think I've read that we have to register for that.
Yeah, you guys have to register because this room can only fit like 60 people. So it's in the WhatsApp group.
The URL I'll put in the WhatsApp group. It's in there, but I'll
Can we put like a coding problem in the registration so that like something that like that keeps like that's how you keep the registration. They put like a basic code problem and then just say and then have AI filter through and approve.
Or,
it's Anthropic controls.
Yeah, Anthropic controls this, but
okay.
they ask like 6 like retarded questions.
Yeah, I filled it out.
Are we going to video this as well? Next week?
We should.
We'll try.
I mean, technically, like they don't want us posting. So, but like maybe internally we can.
You can do a live stream that self-deletes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they don't.
I sleep in, so I like the live streams. I always come late. So.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. I mean, so anyways, that's next week. And then if you want to go, because we're after 12, go for it. So, and also you're doing a running club every Sunday, right? Yeah. I want to announce that to you. So if you guys want to do a wellness, you can pitch it if you want.
It's we meet at the Fern Presso Cafe, and it's a very nice area, birds and lakes, and there's short distance runners and long distance runners, so whatever you do, come.
What time?
There's multiple Fern Presso cafes too, so it's close to Main Street. Is it the one at the reservoir?
You mean live in a dream?
I will share. Yeah.
Yes.
I will share again.
It's at the lake, the lake
CMU
cafe,
lake.
right?
Yeah.
With CMU or not CMU? Yeah, it is CMU.
Yeah,
Dream by
plantations
CMU.
all around.
Yeah. So every week, what time starting?
9.
9 a.m.
Or sorry, I think it's 9.
Yeah. Okay. Every week, Sunday, running club. If you want to get your health in shape because you're staring at the computer too long. There it is. Okay, sorry, I interrupted somebody. I interrupted 2 people, Dave and.
I was just saying that the Y Combinator talks on AI native companies, but I first heard it from Michael, who he's building all these agents over Claw, and he fired 2 staff and 2 staff left because he asked them, unless you become AI appeal, don't be part of my company.
Yeah.
So if your CTO is not doing things AI oriented, and that's the philosophy of your company, then get rid of him and find someone else.
It could be a communication.
Most of the time it's a communication problem. I would never if you just talk to your CTO, like
Expectation.
I've been a CEO for a long time and a developer for less time, and I'll tell you that, and I've also been an investor. Like CEOs and CTOs don't talk enough. You should literally be like this. And if you're not like this, like the fact that you're here asking us advice, like you should ask him for advice, right? Unless he's running you around, right? Like, but also you're right in the sense of, if they're not using AI, I tell anyone if your CTO is not using AI, fire. Like it's just, I meet CTOs all the time. They're like, I refuse to use AI completely. Like even in like checking code, like you're done. They're cooked. Like, they're never gonna have a job again, it's not gonna work, right? So, but he didn't say that your CTO isn't gonna use AI, right?
He uses AI.
Yeah, he
We have our own product.
It's a communication call.
Yeah.
So,
We build a product with Codex. We clone a business component from Myanmar and then we sell it. So now that Ashupudi, our experience with that Ashupudi is I get my user to connect Telegram with our chatbot. Now it's breaking. So I can contact him. It's big problem for me, big issue for me.
yeah. So your Telegram. So I mean, that's like one of the easiest things to fix. Like Telegram to a chatbot is like 2 clicks. But
we have platform like
Honestly, it makes sense though.
the one that goes to Facebook, I forward it.
what's that?
No,
I think
that's
this is
AI
this
tool
is fine.
from
This is
China.
actually a good thing.
Recently, China just AI agent.
So your CTO isn't in Chiang Mai
He's staying in Chiang Mai now. He's going to Shenzhen.
today?
Yesterday.
Oh, he left. So yeah, he won't answer his phone. He can't. Why can't he?
I think maybe he was gone yesterday.
Oh, he's strong. Okay, so you need a new CTO.
I have another 10 developers, but I have been building a different product.
Yeah, the problem is if you have developers that can't, if you have any developers that can't fix a Telegram integration, I fire them all. But I'm gonna pivot my feedback to, you know,
I've been like,
I would just, how much are you spending on token
TTT
plan?
sessions now, so like,
I
haven't done a friend had this song
I mean, I would just ask it to look at the code as read only, figure out the issue, to 95% confidence. Say, you have full access to read only, that's everything.
And so all the
Come back to me with
things that
95% confidence of the issue.
turns out to be more attention.
Yeah.
You're
I'm sorry for taking
I feel a little bit more.
It's so interesting how all this is panning out.
Pretty and stuff like that. I don't know whether people like it or not, I don't care.
Whatever.
Just doing this, it's like a release.
Did you want to grab lunch or just check in?
You can just try, I want to make sure we're all.
You too.
Yeah, you don't go to lunch? Yeah, we can talk about it. Sit next to each other. Hey, what's up? No.
I was trying to.
Yeah, let's listen to you. Yeah, I'm not. Food, break,